Dr. Madhuri, could you tell us a little bit about your consortia and beyond what Dr. Zarabi has described, what do you see as the next steps to get to that groundbreaking and getting the project off the ground?
Thanks, Jesse. I think it's been a long 30 months. Dr. Zarabi has been involved with, and we've also been involved since July 2011. This is a first for the JP Group. We've never got into high-tech manufacturing. We're basically construction, power, cement-based company. But we have a number of firsts to our credit. Formula One in India is first for us. We are the first private hydropower producer in India. We set up the Taj Expressway, which is now called the Yamuna Expressway, first time on a toll-based system. And in the education sector, which I had, we had the first state private university in India, in Himachal Pradesh. Nobody has ever set up a private state university before that. I think when we got into it, we said we need established players who have been in this for a long time. And so we went in for a consortia involving a technology partner and an implementation partner. A technology partner globally established with more than 100 years of experience, and an implementation partner who has worked in many countries and is presently working in India also. With these thoughts, we got together a consortium which the government of India found to be perfectly in tune with what they were talking about. We're waiting, and I think, as Dr. Zarabi says, if February turns out to be the lucky month for renewal of a letter of intent, then we intend to get cracking with the environmental clearance. We've said we're going to set up the fab in the Greater Noida region, where we have a lot of land the JP has out there. We've identified around 100 acres out there. So get cracking with environmental clearance, which, because of the technicalities involved with the project, we suspect will take anywhere up to 9 to 10 months, and then get on with the process of clean room establishment, talking to suppliers, and looking at bringing in talent from outside of India, expat Indians who want to come back, because I think, and I believe there are lots of them who have contacted us over the last 16 to 18 months, who are very keen on returning back, because after all, this is a first for India. This is a first for India, and as all speakers have said since yesterday and today morning, it is something I think India requires and is looking forward to. Groundbreaking, March to June, anytime.
All right.
Yeah, let's see.
So you heard it first here, folks. All right. Breaking news. Let's go for it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. That's awesome. You didn't name the other fab partners, though. Right? You just gave us a very high-level description.
I think everybody knows it. Media reports are there, but until our fab partners officially announce it themselves, I'm not going to take any names at all. I'm not going to take any names.
Yeah. So we are not taking names here, but I guess everybody knows. Everybody knows, right? Good. We'll leave it at that. So from a process technology point of view, Dr. Zarabi mentioned that you're looking at near leading edge and getting onto the leading edge. So is it fair to assume the starting point might be something like a 65-45 and going on to 28 down the road? Is that?
That's right. I think as with the stipulation, we are looking at kicking off with 90-65 and then going down to more advanced nodes. We have looked at over the last 18 months. We've had consultants also look at it, what the market conditions and what the requirements for India would be. I think we're not looking at totally an Indian scene. We're looking at exporting also, because we believe that we can make a dent overseas. Don't want to get into bleeding edge, because bleeding edge will kill us immediately. We're looking at leading edge sort of mid-range digital and targeted analog, which would help us move ahead, and then specifically discrete analog, on which we'll have to make a hard attempt. But I think the scenario is there, and our partners have long experience, and they're willing to help us tide over any initial discomforts which we might face.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. And one of the questions that's always on everybody's mind is the ability of the consortia or the group to get financial closure, and I think with JP's track record, that should not be an issue. Right?
I don't think it's an issue, because we have been working with a financial closing partner since the start. They've in fact worked on the budgeting, etc. with us. So I don't think that will be an issue. And JP is fundamentally a very strong company in India. The economic downturn has led to certain problems over the last 12 to 18 months, but this is part of any industry scenario.
Wonderful, wonderful. Moving on the technology question, Professor Vasi, you heard what the story is, right? Looking at maybe 9065, moving on to more advanced nodes. So if you look at it from an India perspective, how do you see this playing out? What do you think makes sense?
Well, I would agree that it's good to start off at a relatively, at a node like 65 or so, and move slowly forward. One advantage which we have today is that the nodes are not moving ahead as fast as they used to, so that it's possible to do a lot with 65, 45, which is going to stay there for quite a few years to come. So that's an advantage we have. And it's an advantage which, getting into fab now as opposed to 4 years ago, it's certainly something which is much easier today than if we had done it some time back. The other thing I would mention, and I'm sure both the consortia are looking at it, is that as we move forward, there's going to be a lot of other stuff than just driving down the node, the more than more, as they say. So there's going to be a lot of other things coming in. And that's the other good thing for us today. That is, we really are not, we will be looking at many different aspects, and we will not be that far behind any of the other companies in the world. So these two advantages taken together, I feel this is the right time for us to get into fab.
Wonderful. Well, Ian, would you like to add from a global perspective regarding this story?
Sure. Well, thanks, Jaswinder. And as I reflect on the last decade in the semiconductor industry, in the global semiconductor industry, what has become quite apparent to me is that no single company or single country can single-handedly meet or solve the massive technological challenges on the horizon in this industry. We've seen that time and time again, whether it be the G450 consortia in upstate New York or the Nanoelectronics Research Initiative in the US. We heard about IMEC, ITRI yesterday. I mean, there's a common theme here. And it's players coming together, not because they necessarily want to, but because they have to. And I think that has been certainly applied and applied very well in the development of the fab ecosystem here as you begin that. We see an Israeli company coming together with US, Indian, European companies to start this ecosystem off in the right way. I think you have every right to be enthusiastic about the fab developments. I've always been a firm believer in the co-location to the extent possible of R&D, design, and manufacturing. I think having brilliant people, as Wally mentioned yesterday, co-located or near each other will result in phenomenal developments in this industry. With that said, I think co-location is becoming quite easier in the technological age that we've permitted. So I think as you go forth with this experiment, think about how can we tap into the technology that we've created. I think it's also worth noting that while the title of this subject is Fab is the center of the ecosystem, when it comes down to it, what we're really talking about are the people that will be driving this. Whether it be the supplier community, the fab folks, the fabless players. It's these relationships that you've built over the years that will make this a successful venture.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. And we'll examine some of those questions in a little bit more detail as we go forward. So, Ananda, my next question is going to go to you, right? So, clearly the foundry business, as we've seen, is an extremely competitive business. And it's challenging to make money. We know some of the established players. There are the leaders like the TSMCs, and then there are others who've been in the business for a long time, but they're still struggling to make money, right? Even with very intensive government backing. in some of the regions. So how do you see an India Fab consortia like the JP Group or HSMC-led group, how do you see them creating a differentiation for themselves to be able to compete in the global fab ecosystem? Because clearly, as Dr. Madhuri also mentioned, right, we can't look at a fab as just a regional play. It may be located in India, but it's got to cater to a global marketplace. So how do you see, the India fabs creating a differentiation, a compelling differentiation to be globally competitive?
Thanks, Jaswinder, and it's a pleasure to be here on this fireside chat. And just with these lights, it really looks like we have fire going on the other side. But I think clearly, if we just look at the business angle of this, this is a tough business, no questions asked. And I think the R&D intensity of this business, as Ian pointed out, gets more and more complex with each year passing. But the other side of this business is that with the amount of semiconductors going into consumer devices, that is shifting, I think, the demand side. And if you look at it placed against the fact that today semiconductors go in to so many ranges of products, and then secondary, many of those products largely driven by the consumer. This sets it very differently against what has been happening as this industry, I think, came about and flourished. As was pointed out earlier, I think leading edge, bleeding edge, it's all product dependent, right? And that changes, I think, what it means to be competitive in this business.